All right, we're finally all here. 7:06. We'll start the Committee of the Whole meeting for Tuesday, September 10th. Please call the roll.
Alderman Strelchuk. Alderman Telako. Alderman Meyer.
Here.
Alderman Hancher.
Here.
Alderman Bach.
Here.
Alderman Parrish.
Here.
Alderman Bratt.
Here.
Alderman Gebhardt.
Here.
And Mayor Nurbin.
Here. First up, we have approval of the minutes from August 14th.
Move approval. Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion, comments, questions? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those minutes are approved. Next up, we have our only discussion item of the evening, discussion on the community survey. And Alderman Meyer is going to say a few words to kick us off, and then we'll hand it over to Carrie and Justin.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to take a brief second aside, though. I want to thank Carrie and Justin for all the hard work they put in so far into this. We've got a lot to go, but we still have a long ways to go if this gets approved tonight by the Common Council. I'm not going to go into the history of the city surveys and that, because that's what they will be doing tonight and getting you up to date and everything. But just want to remind the Common Council that a lot of our past policy and budgetary discussions have been made because of residential sentiment projected by our past community surveys. Public Welfare Committee believes that we have the right company to assist us with this, with survey and the plan for gathering the information from our residents that we have is the best approach. If approved tonight, Public Welfare looks forward to continue to move forward on the survey, formalize the questions with all parties, including the Common Council, and then after the survey replies, distribute all the results.
Thank you. All right, with that, take it away, Justin or Carrie. I'm not sure who's going to lead off.
Yeah, I'll take the first go. So the city of Mequon has a 3-decade history of doing community surveys to gauge public feedback on a number of fronts. A little history: the first two were conducted in connection with blue ribbon visioning committees that were set up by the Common Council at the respective times to gauge feedback on a number of points. And both surveys enjoyed high response rates, 52%, 40% response rate, respectively. Those are fantastic response rates, and just shows that we have a community that really enjoys and is willing to give their feedback to the city on these types of surveys. The most recent two in 2012, the torch was picked up by the Public Welfare Committee at that time, and they used the UW Center of Urban Initiatives and Research. That center is no longer around; it's gone, and that survey focused on largely development, so included information about businesses, types of businesses residents want to see in Mequon. It touched on housing, single, are you okay with multifamily? What type of multifamily? Apartments, condos, senior living, and such. And then also touched on broader aspects such as I-43, and in particular the Highland Road interchange that's now coming to fruition was in that survey too. So that survey, again, was done by Public Welfare, and the Public Welfare continued to do the spade work. And then for the 2019 survey, with the UW Center no longer around, we found a new vendor for the 2019 survey, which actually had a couple of the staff members from UW system in their ranks. So we worked with St. Norbert College and Neighborhood Analytics to conduct that survey, and it was roughly a year, little over process from beginning to end, from contracting and finding the consultant, developing questions, going to the community, and then the consultant coming on site to present the results of the survey, which touched on everything from development, open space preservation, economic development, city services, satisfaction with city services, civic campus, and the community pool and parks. So it was a broad type of survey that got a lot of feedback, and again enjoyed a high response rate of 40%. In talking with consultants for this go around, some of them are astonished that we have a community that generates such high response rates. So I think we have a good opportunity to get an equal response in our upcoming survey that hopefully will tie in with the strategic plan.
So this brings us to the 2025 survey. that the Public Welfare Committee has been working on since the beginning of the year. And so at the council meeting tonight, you will be voting on the vendor that they selected that will help us move forward in this process. But before we start, we want to ask a few questions that are going to help us formulate the survey instrument. So we have 5 questions listed up on the screen for you that we are hoping to get your feedback on this evening. So we'll start with the first 2 questions. What is the purpose of the survey, and what does the council wish to learn? As we talked about this at the end of 2023 at the Committee of the Whole, the consensus was to align the next survey with the strategic plan update that we're going to do in 2025. So just for a reference, the 2019 topic areas were economic development, conservation, satisfaction with city services, the civic campus, community pool, parks and pathways. So if we did line this up with the strategic plan, those current 5 focus areas are capital improvements, public safety, financial stewardship, and customer service and quality of life. So we'd like to hear back from you as to what you are wishing to learn in this next survey.
Don't everyone jump at the chance to raise their hand. Alderman Gebhardt.
I'll kick things off. I may be thinking of this in a little different terms than maybe some of my peers. But really, I think for what's important for me is gauging how we're doing from a customer satisfaction perspective in the eyes of the residents. Are we providing the right services, both in context of the way we're handling issues to the services we provide as a community and so forth? That would be important for me. The second topic that would be important for me is help understand from a community standpoint how they think of priorities in our community. So what is most important to them? I think that helps set the tone for where we spend our time and how we allocate our time to the different priorities that we address as a council to keep this city as strong as what it is. The piece that I get a little bit concerned with is using it too much to go ahead and guide policy. And I say that because I think that in terms of what different priorities are, sometimes different priorities could be conflicting if we try to drive policy with that. An example of that might be in terms of looking at our historically low tax base and knowing that over the course of time we've got to consider how we're going to go ahead and generate more revenue, and taking away levers that we might have, such as economic development or other levers like that. And I'm not saying I'm advocating one over the other, but I think one of the challenges that we have as an overall board is to continue to think about how we're going to sustain the increased costs that we have to operate this great city and make sure that we have all the levers available to us. And I don't know that the general public necessarily understands the variables. You know, I'm sitting in my role now for about a year and a half, and I tell you there's a lot I didn't know now that I'm sitting where I am here today, and I look at that as being a very important factor for me to be a better member of this committee and make better decisions moving forward, if that makes sense. So I'd be a little concerned in using it too much to drive policy. I think we have to factor it in terms of how we're thinking of priorities.
Alderman Strelchak.
I'll kind of build on that, and I think it's great. The surveys that we've done in the past have been an excellent resource for council, and what we've gained from it is a pulse on really what people desire. And as Alderman Gebhardt mentions, you know, we don't want it to drive policy, but again, some of the feedback that we had was pretty simple. You know, people wanted certain things, and then the second question was they didn't want to pay for it with raised taxes. So we were able to gain a pulse on really what the constituency wanted, right? We're all elected to vote and support our constituency, but they also elect us to do the deeper analysis, as you've mentioned, and really understand the ins and the outs of what happens within the city and make a best educated judgment on how to drive policy for the city moving forward, something that's more sustainable. So I do agree with you. You know, again, really the things that I want to do, and I'll kind of broad brushstroke this is, you know, we did an extensive, since the last survey, you know, town center's grown significantly, right? There's been a ton of development. What's the pulse? You know, people have had a few years to, you know, to see it, get used to it, go to the different venues and experience it. What's the pulse there? How do we like it? The pool is, you know, as I've been like openly blunt about, has been an important issue for me for a very long time. You know, our pool, in my opinion, you know, needs an updating and needs one bad. It has for years. I took swimming lessons in that pool as a child, and really view that as a community resource, and something that I want to continue. So, you know, what is the pulse of what people want to see within a pool? How far do we want to take this? Do we want it to be a simple pool where people can come and just relax and swim, or do we want a full-blown pool that's, you know, closer to a Cedarburg, or even better than a Cedarburg, maybe with a little more extensive water slides and things like that? Development, and we had some questions in the last one as it related to architecture. Architecture on Port Road, there have been a couple buildings that have been approved, heavy glass buildings, that I personally didn't like and voted against. I would love a pulse to see if that remains my opinion, or if my constituency backs and prefers more natural elements, and we did a really good job in crafting that. For the newer aldermen and alder people on the council, I'll highlight to you that the questioning was, asking a question about what you like and what you don't like is a lot harder than we think it is. So as we get into the minutia of where the questions go moving forward, just kind of take a deep breath and realize that you may not get everything that you want out of the question. It's very hard to ask a question without leading with an opinion, or asking a line of questions without leading a certain level of opinion, in doing that. And that was one of my struggles as I reviewed the questions on the last survey. So just know that frustration's coming, and also the excitement of how to, you know, be creative and craft something that still works and really gains the pulse of the constituency. And with that, I'll yield to my fellow council members for their input.
Alderman Hancher.
I guess my main interest would be what would be the viewpoint of people in the community from different age groups, from people that are new in Mequon, that have young families, that are in the middle age group, and people that are older. What do they see as the future of Mequon, and what do they want? That breakdown would be helpful to me, because we have more and more housing coming in, which more and more younger families that would be interesting to see what their viewpoint is and how they want to see the city, and also from the standpoint of people that are older, how do they see themselves in the city, and what do they want? What do they need from the city? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Alderman Bach.
Just to comment, and Justin, maybe you can elaborate. We talked about that. I'm on that committee. Both of us are on the committee, so we've shared a bunch during our meeting, so I'll yield my time. But we did talk a little bit about looking at the 2019 survey, and there were a lot of good questions already that were on there. So we might be able to take some of that information, and the committee was going to look at that, so we don't have to recreate the wheel on some of that. And to the point from Alderman Hancher, I think we talked a little bit about the demographic questions too, and that might help get to some of what he's asking about.
Yep, correct. If we carry over the demographic section from the last survey to this survey, it includes age, length of residency, and 5 or 6 other general questions, including which aldermanic district you live in. That allows then the consultant to slice and dice all the questions by whether it's age, family, and whatnot to give you feedback by those various groups. And also staff, if we ever do a future analysis, we can crunch numbers too.
I'll make a general comment quickly. Looking at the survey topics from 2019 to now, it's not like they don't map reasonably well to the strategic plan. Each one of those things falls into one of the buckets, many of them on the quality of life side. So it's not like we're in total misalignment. The strategic plan is a little more general in nature, and some of those were very targeted initiatives. So, I mean, some amount of that carrying forward is good. I like the idea of checking, how do we do? We put in town center between, much of town center between now and the last survey. Some of it predated that, but gauge people's reaction to that. I think, as I think Alderman Gebhardt mentioned, gauging customer satisfaction across maybe a variety of city services is also good. That directly aligns with our strategic plan. I think we should take the opportunity to, this next year in 2025, it's in our plan to start working on the plan for the civic campus. We've got some ARPA monies aligned for helping develop that plan. We should maybe use a question or two to figure out what we want in that, what we'd like to see, if we had a blank sheet, including the pool, which was mentioned earlier. And then I think this is maybe a little more policy, but maybe not so much. It's also a longer range, still taking the opportunity to gauge people's feelings on development, residential and economic development. One of the things we're still looking at and doing a sewer analysis for is the Southwest Industrial Park concept. It'd be a shame to have a survey and not gauge some feedback on the prospect of that. Certainly that's something we'll be dealing with in the next couple of years, and if we're going out for a survey, we should gauge people's reaction to that, much like we did with some of the questions in the last survey for other specific ideas. I think Alderman Meyer had his hand up.
Just quickly, what I think a lot of stuff boils down to is the fact of that moving forward, as Alderman Gebhardt said, we have to try to find ways of revenue or other means. And I guess it boils down to the fact of that, I'd like to hear it from the residents, boils down to either development, tax increases, or reduced services. I mean, that's the only way that things happen. I mean, that's going to be happening. So, or some combination of that. So I'd like to get the pulse of the residents on, if it goes the development way, is it residential, is it industrial that they would like to see more inside of it, and what types? Tax increase, are they willing to not see a lot of development inside of there, but have a small tax increase on a yearly basis to sustain stuff and to improve things as it goes along? Or are they looking at, we don't want to do any of that and we're fine with reducing services? I'm not advocating any of those by any means whatsoever, but it'd be nice to hear from the residents on some of those points to find out if they're leaning in any one of the directions.
There's question 1. We can always come back if we have to.
Okay, so the next question is, should benchmark questions be used to compare Mequon to other comparable cities? So you can see an example up on the screen of one such question. And so it shows how the city did versus how their region did, and then how the U.S. did. So when we did select our vendor, we did reference checks with 2 other cities, and they pretty much solely based their vendor selection on the fact that they could do benchmark with other cities. So that does seem to be important to other cities. I don't know if that's important to us, or if we want more Mequon specific questions. Some people do take the benchmark questions and then just maybe do 1 or 2 specific questions to their community. So there's lots of different ways that we can do this. So this is where we did provide you with all the benchmark categories from ETC Institute in your packets. So hopefully you had a chance to take a look at those. And just so you know, we would be compared with the Plains region, and so Wisconsin falls under that region, which also includes North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa, Illinois, Missouri, Kansas, and Oklahoma. So we will leave that open then to you to give any feedback on the benchmark part question.
Alderman Meyer.
I'll kick this one off then. So at Public Welfare, we did think that some of those questions would be important for us to have. There is a list, probably like about 50 of them on there or more for it. A lot of those don't pertain to anything that we would be looking to get information on. So we did plan on our next meeting kind of paring some of those down and getting that down to a minimum amount of questions. I mean, I don't know whether that's 3, as you said, maybe that's 6 of them or whatever. We've got 30 questions is what we can put on our survey, so the more we add into those types of questions for us, and we'll add them in if it's important to everybody, but the more we add those in, the less questions we get to get the pulse of the city inside of it. So, you know, I was kind of thinking, you know, if we had like 6 important ones that make reference to us and we can be comparison to, pretty straightforward to it, we thought that'd be a good thing, but we haven't decided on which ones it would be, and of course that's the purview of the common council to take a look at which ones they would like to get information on. So I know it'd be a quick decision tonight trying to pick those things out, so, but we could do something like that next month and get a report back to the common council real quick and just let them know it'd be kind of picked out.
Okay. Anyone else? Alderman Gebhardt?
Yeah, I like that idea. For me, I wouldn't, this wouldn't be a really important area, but I do think that if you could be a little bit more selective and narrow it down to a couple of areas, there may be some value in that.
Yeah. I was thinking if it was a question that pertained to some other policy or decision you were making and you could help add a little color to that, that might be particularly interesting, but you'd almost, I like the idea of narrowing it down, and then we can have like a slightly bigger list and then see which ones align with other focus areas of the survey that might help us tease out more information somewhere else. I agree. I think it's maybe not a main focus of the survey, but it might be a complementary portion that I wouldn't want to say no to it, but I wouldn't want the whole survey to center around. I'll leave it to the capable hands of the committee to take a first crack at that one. Alderwoman Tlaco.
So I'm just thinking that I would see only the benefit kind of for this as a benchmark of comparing other communities' mill rate compared to Mequon. For instance, we're at $3.11 currently in Mequon, and a quick Google search shows that Cedarburg's at $6.06 per thousand. So that could give residents kind of an idea of how well we use our money, considering our land size, and kind of give them a feel or a pulse of what's going on around them versus what's happening here in the community, and also kind of show them how we are taking into consideration every penny and using it wisely, especially if we were to ask for an increase somewhere along the lines. If we find out that things are not sustainable, I just think it might be good information that maybe residents aren't exactly aware of.
Any other feelings on the benchmarking questions? Thank you. So we're open to them, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay.
Okay,
Oh,
well, sorry.
So the instructions are pick out a half dozen to, 6 to 10 and send it to committee of the whole and say, hey, here's the ones that I like. Is that the direction?
Well, I think
here?
a lot depends on the question formulation for the rest of the survey, and if there's only 30, 35 questions, then 30, then how many? If you have the other ones you like more and these less, we'll have to. I'd keep a deeper bench and just see who you cut. I don't know. Use a sports analogy.
Yeah, my biggest ones are around the roads and public safety. So, yeah, that's great. And the library.
Cool. On to the next question. Everyone good?
So the final two questions talk about if we want them to be to revolve around policy issues, customer satisfaction, or a combination thereof. So we did include some of the questions from the 2019 survey. So numbers 11 and 12 are policy questions, and then about open space preservation. And then number 17 is an example of a customer satisfaction question. So we pose this to you if we want to go with policy issues, customer satisfaction, or a combination.
Alderwoman Tlaco.
Just thinking about Mequon and who we are, we're known for low taxes, preserving land. So like some of these like currently protected, land in the city open spaces, that's something that is in our zoning and development that I don't feel like needs to be a question. It is our standard. It is like what separates us from other communities, where I don't feel that that is a pertinent question as far as asking our residents, because I feel like that's an expectation or guarantee when you're going to live in Mequon, that we're going to do a good job doing that. And if that's not what you're looking for, then maybe this isn't where you want to live then. As far as satisfaction, echoing Alderman Gebhardt, I think it is really important. I want to hear feedback. What are we doing really well? What areas are they feeling like we're not providing enough or doing enough? And then that would really help us gauge policies and procedures to stream down the line. We want to make sure that the point of the survey for me, of why I'm like, I want the survey, is I want to make sure that I am echoing the sentiments of my constituents, and why I don't get to talk to each and every one of them. I want to make sure that I am their voice, and this is my opportunity then to hear that voice and be able to further that, because that is my job. So again, just to reiterate, like the satisfaction, seeing how we're doing, and then gauging, as Alderman Strelchak said, about getting a pulse of like, do you guys want more of the downtown center, or was that enough for you? Like, where should we take our development? And then as Mayor Nurburg said about like gauging an industrial park out in the west part of Mequon, those are questions that I'm looking for to really understand where we need to like be focused on.
So a little of each. But from the discussion so far, I'm hearing a slight preference for more of the customer satisfaction piece, but I don't know if we can totally evade some of the more policy-centric questions either. But is that generally where people's heads are at, a little more lean towards customer satisfaction, but don't miss an opportunity to ask questions on some big upcoming policy issues? The last one was very, very policy-centric. So we can skew it a little bit, but just maybe not totally go away from it. That sound good?
That sounds good. So thank you.
We'll have many more meetings to
Yes.
define what that actually means.
Well, the Public Welfare Committee will take this feedback back, and they'll be working on questions for the remainder of the year. So feel free to come to any of those meetings if you would like to share more input. Thank you for your time tonight.
Alderman Strelchak.
Is there better engagement on one type of questioning versus another? We're at 40% and up for response rates, which is outstanding. I think the reason for some of that is people really feel like they have a voice, right, through the community survey. And they've heard us talk multiple times after the survey results came in about what their voice meant, what the percentages were, and the analysis based on the feedback that was received. So I guess my line of questioning for you, yes, a hybrid obviously sounds like it's the pulse of the council, but enough meat on the bones you know, from a policy standpoint, to where people, you know, feel like they're sharing their opinions and their voices being heard and it's being analyzed, right? I do want to reiterate parks, and if there's anything where we can ask about specific amenities, just an easy something, you know, like I know pickleball was a huge one, and people wanted that up, and it's been a, you know, year and a half since that original discussion started, and that's moving a little slower, I think, than what some residents were hoping to see. So, you know, can we drive a little of park funding from that?
Excellent. Any last parting feedback? Otherwise, there will be, maybe we'll see increased participation in public welfare meetings this upcoming year. I think I can see the future on that one. Having been through a couple surveys, there ended up being some pretty interesting discussions. You got what you need, Carrie and Justin?
Yes,
Okay.
and we'll be back in the first quarter once the survey instrument is done for your approval.
Perfect. Next up, we have a quick discussion on committee of the whole planning calendar. Any questions on the calendar coming up or suggestions for new topics? If there aren't any now, we can always get to them another time. We got one, Alderman Brett.
Sorry, Mayor. The only question I would have, I see we have a future topic, bike and pedestrian way master plan. I would only encourage that we have it sooner rather than later, just because we're going to be adopting, or the Bikeway Commission will be adopting that at some point in December, if I'm right. So maybe it'd be good we have it at sometime October, November.
I don't have it up in front of me. What do? Pardon, Kristen? Yeah, we don't have the report yet. I didn't see when it was scheduled, and I don't have it up in front of me.
It's a future item, so
Oh,
we
it's
don't
a
have it on
future
the
item.
calendar.
So yeah, I think that probably will get. I'm guessing it'll get introduced here before it goes for final adoption, but we don't have the report yet. Okay, noted. We'll try and
Thank
make
you.
that happen. Excellent. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And we're adjourned, and we'll